Today on Locked On Red Wings, Marco Kasper's three-point night propels the Grand Rapids Griffins to a 1-0 series lead over the Milwaukee Admirals.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm formerly of 97.1 The Ticket, where Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And on today's episode, the Griffins. We talked yesterday with Andrew Rinaldi about what the Griffins could do to upset the Milwaukee Admirals. Well, through one game in the series, they're doing a pretty dang good job as they win the first game 4-2. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about world championships as well, probably in the latter half of the episode. There's a lot to talk about with this one. As that Griffins game was scary at times, but overall a lot of fun. But before we get to that, got to tell you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Scotty, happy Thursday, buddy. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well. You and I scored as many runs as the Tigers have for the last 19 innings. So,
is that good?
I'm going to go with no. But we're here and we have a great hockey game to talk about. So I'm doing well because of that.
We do have a great hockey game to talk about. And of course, that is that aforementioned Grand Rapids Griffins 4-2 victory over the Milwaukee Admirals. You take the first game on the road. That means that in this best-of-5 series, now you have home ice advantage. And it was bumpy at times, especially as that game got on and Milwaukee looked more and more like Milwaukee. But I thought there were two solid difference makers in this game, which is perfect because we usually want to come with two separate difference makers. So, Scotty, of the two obvious ones, who you going with in this episode?
I'm going with the most obvious of the obvious ones. I'm gonna go with the man with the 3-point night. Marco Kasper was absolutely phenomenal in this one. There is post game. There's a post-game interview that Red Wings prospects retweeted from Bob Kasser as well that everyone should go check out. Just ask him a couple of questions coming out of the locker room. And yeah, man, absolutely phenomenal. And I think that you are seeing, all of the different aspects, I guess, in which he can contribute on the ice, right? Like we've talked a lot about the two-way of a lot of the players that Yzerman has wanted to develop in the forward group. And I think that this game was kind of the epitome of that. Like you saw good playmaking, you saw obviously point production, and you saw really solid defense on the other side of the ice from him. I think that this was just an incredible all-around game. Even really, sans the 3 points in the box score. Like this was really kind of an all-around, like you could just tell that he was one of the best players on the ice tonight, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, and it really showed he really showed that in those big moments, right? When he was put in a position to make a big play, he did not miss.
Yeah.
First and foremost, 2-1 coming down the ice with Zach Aston-Reese on the opposite side. It was Dominic Shine who broke that pass up to Marco Kasper along the wing, but they come down on a 2-on-1, and that just an absolute beauty of a saucer pass on a 2-on-1 when you know the guy is going to try and take the passing lane away by spreading out, laying out on the ice. Marco Kasper had the most beautiful textbook saucer pass over the player onto the stick of Zach Aston-Reese, and credit to Zach Aston-Reese for getting all of it and finishing that. But that pass could not have been more on the mark from Marco Kasper. And then in the third period, that what ended up being the game-winning goal for the first time in the playoffs. The Grand Rapids Griffins have a game-winning goal from somebody other than Jonathan Berggren.
Yeah, right.
But Marco Kasper on a beautiful feed by Rafferty. I want to give him credit too, because he was under pressure along the boards and did a nice little spin behind the back backhand pass to Marco Kasper, and Kasper in tight pulled it to his forehand, went over the shoulder of the goaltender for the Admirals, off the post and in. I think it was Grosnick was the goaltender. I don't know how he did that. Like, honestly, from that in tight to go far side over the post, over the shoulder of the goalie, like Grosnick was probably a little bit too far inside the crease, but at the same time, Kasper is right on top of him. So where else does he have to go? Just the incredible finish in just like that too. Like, he pulled it to him, went forehand, went off the post and in. Fantastic stuff by Kasper. And then the selfless play to just bump it off the boards, out of the way of traffic, to L'Esperance for the empty net goal as well for his 3-point night. Without a doubt, difference maker in this hockey game.
Yeah, I think pretty hard pressed to find somebody who was a bigger difference maker, I guess. But I do think that there is an argument for the man that you're about to bring up.
I was gonna say, funny you say that.
Yeah, right. There's one argument to be made, and I think that is a pretty obvious one too.
Yeah, that'd be obviously Sebastian Cossa, and that made 25 saves and 27 shots against in this game, only allowing 2 goals for, I think, a 9.25, 9.26 save percentage in this one. You know, early on, he allowed 2 goals and less than 10 shots, I think it was, or less than 15 shots. I'm not quite sure on the exact number, but he looked really good, especially in the second half of the game, because this is a game in which the Milwaukee Admirals did not start off very hot. Like, the Griffins dominated the first 15 minutes of the first period. Defensively, the Admirals couldn't get anything past the Grand Rapids Griffins, and that was great to see. It was a mistake by Johansson and Edvinsson that allowed a breakaway down on Cossa, and yeah, I would love to see Cossa make the save on Leroux, who ended up getting the goal. He's got, 10 points in like 6 Calder Cup games. He's great. I would love to see him make the save on that breakaway, but it's a breakaway nonetheless, so we don't give too much blame on the goaltender in that situation. And then the second one, it is what it is. But outside of that, like, even though neither of those goals I even attribute to it being Cossa's fault. And then in the second half of that game, when they were just peppering him, especially with the late third period push, where they were bodying Cossa up, like they were running him, borderline running him over in net. He kept his composure and made big save after big save after big save, bailing out the Grand Rapids Griffins, because this was a game where the Griffins, outshooting the Milwaukee Admirals after the first period, barely had any shots on goal in the final 3. They had 6 shots on goal in the first, 4 in the second, and 4 on the third. They only had 14 shots on goal in the entire game, and the Admirals had 27. The Griffins were heavily outplayed by the end of this game, and that's why I would argue it's at least on the same level. Like, obviously, Kasper's 3-point night is the reason why they won, but Sebastian Cossa stopping 25 shots is the reason why they didn't lose. Let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely. I think, and again, like I alluded to it a little bit earlier, like the all around, I think, play there's honestly a few players we can kind of go down the line and talk about some other standouts in this one. But I think Cossa was really, when you talk about goalies, a lot of people describe like really good goaltending as an anchor, right? Like, it's just one thing that can kind of be the great equalizer. It doesn't really matter what's happening in the front. If you have a goalie that's truly like on their head, that can really kind of change an entire game or series all by itself. In this game, you had a blend of both, right? You had really good production in front of him. Obviously, you saw some really good defense at times. Again, the push late in the game, obviously included in that, but Cossa was really a rock kind of throughout.
100% he was a rock. That's a great way of putting it. We're going to do a quick break, and when we return, we'll get to some of those notable performers that you alluded to, as we're going back to our good old difference maker notable performer structure. Nice to have hockey games to talk about again after a 10-day layoff. So stay tuned for that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, you alluded to a couple of difference makers in this hockey game, and one of those difference makers I would like to argue would be Carter Mazur. He opened the scoring for the Grand Rapids Griffins, and honestly, you could extend that to the entire first line. Not difference maker, notable performer, rather. Yeah. Apologies. That's what I meant. That entire first line
I was just going to let it slide.
It's fine. People know what I meant. But that first line continued to be lethal. It combined for that first goal just exactly how you would want it to. Jonathan Berggren goes in deep to retrieve the puck. He feeds it from down low to Zarnik in the slot. Zarnik, not even giving the hint that he may have looked for Mazur backdoor, just knows he's there. As soon as that puck's on his stick in the high slot, where all eyes are on Zarnik now, right? Because he is in a high danger scoring area with the puck in the slot, just feeds it to Mazur backdoor, who buries it. That's his second goal in 5 games. It's his 5th point in 5 games. Carter Mazur, who we just talked about yesterday with Andrew Rinaldi, shows up big again for the Grand Rapids Griffins early in the hockey game. And that was kind of the opening shot in this game that got the ball rolling for the Griffins as they built upon actually a really solid the first 15, and then Milwaukee woke up. But that goal really set the tone for the first period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to bring up Mazur too, but I actually think that it's better to highlight, like you alluded to right after, the entire line there. I thought that they were absolutely buzzing. And yeah, that was the highlight that line produced, that beautiful, tic-tac-toe, man. Like that's it's about as pretty as it gets and about as textbook as it gets. But yeah, man, like those are 3 guys who, you look at the Red Wings roster next year, Zarnik is going to be, if he's around, is going to be a fringe type of player. But like Berggren is a guy that is he's going to be playing in the NHL somewhere, like we keep saying, right? It's just a matter of whether it's here or not. And then Mazur, obviously, with the goal, like, we've talked a lot about how we think there's a legitimate chance that there's going to be an opening in the bottom 6 for him in the fall as well. So like when talking about that line, it's really nice to see them buzzing just because we want to see this team win as much as possible. But it's also really nice because those are 3 guys that all could be playing games for the Red Wings at some point in some varied role next season.
Yeah, without a doubt. Mazur's really making a push these playoffs to prove that he deserves a role. Obviously, come training camp, that'll be the deciding factor. Also, I think a notable performer in this game, but not in the positive sense. This power play continues to be just abysmal for the Grand Rapids Griffins. Technically, they got their first power play goal of the season on Les Perance's empty net goal, because it shouldn't have even, I'll be honest, it shouldn't have even gotten to a power play. Talking about Carter Mazur, just that the play that led to the power play is he's going down the wing in the offensive zone with the puck and he gets hauled down. That technically by the book should have been an awarded goal to Carter Mazur with the empty net with 1:45 or whatever was left in the game, because he was hauled down with an empty net scoring chance, which means that it's an awarded goal. Like, that's how it should have been. But instead, they gave the Griffins the power play. Admirals pulled their goal yet anyways to just make it 5-on-5 because they still got to try and win the game. If there's nothing else to do in the playoffs besides win at this point. So I don't fault them for making that decision. But eventually that led to their first power play goal of the series, being with the empty net there at the end. They're 1 for 10, 1 for 11, I think now, with the power play on in the playoffs. They were 1 for 3 in tonight's game. Not ideal, Scotty. And that second power play in particular, the one that they had in the second, they couldn't even establish zone presence. Like they got the puck deep and it just came right back out every time. They could not enter the zone. And Bob Kaiser mentioned it during the broadcast. He goes, letting it, the penalty killing team dominate the way that they are is going to give them momentum, could lead to a goal against. And less than like a minute after he said that, the Admirals tied the game back up 2-2. So like, we talked about it after the series against Rockford, and Andrews talked about it for months on end with us. This power play is bad. And if you want to win a championship, the power play is going to be what is going to be the difference maker. It's great that the Griffins are good at 5-on-5. It was enough in this game, especially combined with Cossa's superb appearance in net. But if you want to make your lives easier, you got to be able to convert on the power play. And so far, they have not been able to do that.
Yeah, and that's something obviously that we talked about a lot with Rinaldi yesterday, right? And that was his biggest key to the series. And the fact that we have, that the Griffins have snuck out another win without having it again, like you mentioned, technically, I guess they scored on the power play, but like the fact that we are now, up in the series and despite the lack of power play success again, like you have to imagine that like the they can't keep getting away with it meme. Like you have to imagine that at some point that's going to catch up to them. But in the same breath, glass half empty, glass half full, like it is nice to see that they are playing well enough at 5-on-5 to still take leads and still produce, but B, just straight up win against better teams. Like, we can be upfront about it, right? Like the fact that they're able to get this win without it is a big deal if it comes eventually. If it doesn't, then you're in a heap of trouble. But if that does turn a corner eventually, then you could be talking about a run for sure.
Well, and in the same vein, we're talking about how the failed power play led to a goal against. The successful penalty kill did the same for the Grand Rapids Griffins. In the third period, the Admirals finally got their first power play. They had some sustained zone pressure in the Griffins defensive zone, rather. The Griffins were able to persevere. They kept the puck out of high danger areas, cleared the zone, and about a minute later, that's when Rafferty and Kasper go down the zone, exchange the puck a couple times, and then boom, Kasper gives you a 3-2 lead, and it ends up being the game winner. So while we're criticizing the power play's inability to get going, the penalty kill is huge. Like, obviously, it's not just about preventing goals. It's also about building momentum once you get back to 5-on-5. And we saw in this game how big penalty kills can be to leading to goal scoring chances when you get back to even strength 2 minutes later. So that was great to see. I'm glad that they went 1-for-1 on the penalty kill. But I mean, you go back to, it's great that you saw Sebastian Cossa play as well as he did. But if you want to beat a team like the Milwaukee Admirals, a team that is, I mean, they were the first seed for a reason. This is a team that is better than the Grand Rapids Griffins in almost every, and not to say that the Griffins are bad, right? Like, the Griffins are a very good hockey team. They proved that this season. Yeah. But Milwaukee Admirals is just a little bit better in a lot of those same areas. So if you want to be able to beat the Milwaukee Admirals, that special teams is going to be a huge difference maker. And thankfully, they only got one power play in this game, and you were able to kill it, but you were given 3. And yes, you technically scored on the empty net goal. It's just, you got to be able to convert on some of those, because you're not going to get, and we've already seen it, you're not going to get 925 save percentage Sebastian Cossa in every single game. You were able to depend on Sebastian Cossa to bail you out of this hockey game.
If you do, though.
If you do, fantastic. But I'm just saying, like,
no, I get you.
You're not going to, you can win trophies and championships on the backs of a hot goalie. We've seen that in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unfair to expect that of your goaltender. So I'm just finishing this rant by saying, please score a couple more power play goals throughout the series. Make Sebastian Cossa's job a little bit easier, and you might be able to upset the Milwaukee Admirals. You got a 1-0 series lead. You only need 2 more wins to seal the deal and punch your ticket to the conference championships.
Absolutely. And the thing is with, again, like we talked about Cossa obviously earlier, but like they are the Admirals are so deep, and that's what we talked about yesterday a lot with Rinaldi. And like, they have the ability to throw different units at you and different players at you and different goalies at you, right? Like, they have that. That is a really, really deep roster. So again, not only the ability to steal a game here early, but just in general, like, when you are playing a team that is deeper than you have to be able to take advantage on special teams for sure.
Yep.
Which I know we're like really just kind of driving into the ground, but like, it's very important.
We're driving into the ground because, like you said, it's very important. It is
Right.
like, it's super important. Anyways, well, we'll stop talking in circles. We'll move on to segment 3, where we talk a little bit about the World Championships that is ongoing. We got some player personnel news, which I'm sure by now it's not new news, but it is impactful to another one of the Red Wings prospects. So we'll talk about that. Stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. They are an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. And with flash deals, you can save more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or an event, and save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Like Scotty, for example, he wants to go to a Tigers game to see them lose 1-0, where 2 pitchers shove, but the Tigers can't get any offense. He uses Game Time to get 60% off right before the game starts because he lives right down the road. So it's perfect for Scotty and his masochism. Who wouldn't want that? So they will also credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I was on a different tab that entire time. I couldn't see your reaction. So
I did the laser show.
Oh, did you? Okay. I'm glad to know.
I was waiting. I was like, dude, does he not care that I just did the laser show? That's crazy.
Because of the current setup.
Wait, watch this one. I figured this one out the other day I was talking to a buddy of mine. Oh, no, it's not going to do it, dude. Double thumbs down is like a storm gets created, dude. It's like actually really intense. Look at this.
There you go.
I'm going to start doing that when you have bad takes.
So just the entire episode?
Yeah, it's just going to be a whole episode of rain. Yeah.
All right. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Talk a little bit about the World Championships. Team USA is struggling a little bit right now. They are 1-1-1. Their one win coming against Germany. Most recently, they lost to Slovakia, down 4-1. They march back to force overtime, 4-4, but then fall in overtime. I think they have like about 5 points on it. They're in 5th place with 3 points in the tournament thus far. I'm not super invested in IIHF World Championships, and I'm not going to pretend to you guys that I am, but I am rooting for Team USA, especially because they have Trey Augustine on the roster. They have Westland, they have Lalone, they have Petrie. And previously, they had Alex Lyon, who was injured and ended up having to come home. But it's tough watching them not be able to beat teams like Slovakia, who in years past, that should be marked down as a win before you even play the game. And maybe there's a little bit of, maybe that's the reason they lost. Maybe they got a little cocky. But losing to a team, there's no shame in losing to Sweden. They're a good hockey team. But you got to be careful real fast, because those elimination rounds are going to approach in a hurry, and you got to qualify for those too. So only having 1 win in 3 games is not going to help your case that much, especially being 5th place in your pool.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, like it's like you said, it's it's an interesting tournament just because it is. I mean, the grab bag of players on some rosters is really fascinating, right? So like Alex Lyon is probably not like the 1A choice for Team USA in net. And I'm sure Augustine is not necessarily 1B. We're rooting for them because, like, duh. And also there's a lot of wings on there, and it'd be really cool to see Augustine do well. It's just you're right. Like they should still be winning, and they should still be looking better than they have. But it's still like
Well,
Jeff Petrie's getting a lot of playing time.
well, that's the thing though, is like before Alex Lyon got hurt, he had a 940 save percentage. He had a win. He played in the one win that they played. He got hurt. I think he got hurt in that win against Germany, and he played fine against Sweden as well. Sweden's a very good hockey team. He had a above 900 save percentage in that one as well. So Alex Lyon was playing fine prior to the injury. We don't know how severe that injury is. If I'm going to speculate, it's probably he tweaked something and it's a minor injury, but they didn't want to exacerbate it at Worlds. So they just sent him home to be safe. So then Alex Nedeljkovic became the team's starter, and he stunk against Slovakia.
Red Wings connections left and right, man.
Right. He was not good against Slovakia, ended up getting pulled. But here's the silver lining to this. Trey Augustine, despite not having started a game yet for Team USA, is making a push to be the starter. He's got a 905 save percentage and 2 relief appearances. He was fine against Germany. In Slovakia, he was the goaltender in the net that didn't allow a single goal until overtime. Once he was in net, Team USA charged all the way back. I mean, I'm all for giving Trey Augustine a look. Again, because I get it. The international stage, these players do care about IIHF Worlds, just not nearly as much as us American fans are, because it's going on the same time as the Stanley Cup. I'm sure they care. But for me, I'm like, this would be tremendous experience for Trey Augustine, coming off a fantastic tournament or a fantastic season with Michigan State, to get starts in these pool play, especially because if this is the best you're going to get out of Nedeljkovic, and I don't want to overreact to that either, because we saw with the Pittsburgh Penguins this year, he had a great bounce back season. He could have just had one rough game, but I put Augustine out there. I want to see him get the start. He's had 2 great relief appearances. He's looked better in 2 games than Alex Nedeljkovic did in his start. So just, I say go for it.
I mean, we ball, baby.
What do we have to lose?
Yeah, we ball, man. You don't got to convince me, brother. You're preaching to the choir. I'm all about it. I almost dropped the full moniker there. I almost said F it, we ball. But yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah. Outside of that, Lucas Raymond, 2 goals in 3 games. One of those was an absolute snipe on Alex Lyon, and they're in the 2 teams' first real game of the tournament. So Lucas Raymond continues to be Lucas Raymond. He's wearing the A for Sweden, which is a huge deal, considering that the people he's wearing letters with are well revered. Erik Karlsson obviously being the captain. So for him to be wearing the A for Team Sweden shows, I think, a lot of what on the international field they think of Lucas Raymond, not just here in Red Wings fans where we're all goo-goo and googly-eyed for Lucas Raymond, to see him with 2 goals, all goo-goo for Lucas Raymond. I'm loving the fact that Lucas Raymond's continuing the hot play into the international tournament. And, I initially didn't think that it was worth it for a guy like Lucas Raymond to go to this tournament, especially with a contract looming. But if he wants to go to the Olympics, it was pointed out to me that saying no to this tournament would hurt his resume for the Olympic roster, because there's competition for the Swedish Olympic roster. Like, it's not a shoo-in that he's going to make it. So going to Worlds, representing his country there, saying yes to that invite and performing well gives him a leg up come the next Olympics, because this will be the first time in
for sure. No, it's a great point.
2 Olympics that the NHL players are going to be going.
Yeah, fantastic point for sure.
Cool. No thumbs down that time. And then finally, Scotty. Oh, wait a minute. No. There we go. Finally, Olli Maatta, captain of Team Finland. He's got a goal and an assist so far in the tournament. Nothing else to
Dog right
note
there.
other than offensive dynamo Olimata's got a goal in the tournament. We love to see that for him.
Absolute dog. Give him the A next year.
Oh, with the Red Wings. I was like, you're going to demote him on Team Finland?
No.
All right. Speaking of A's, that's the conversation that we want to have as soon as we have a off day, so to speak, between the Griffins and our draft profiles, with David Perron not re-signed yet. We want to have the conversation. Who picks up that letter? Because that's, I think, a fun conversation to have. We'll be having
We kind of have that every spring too, and it's always a really fun episode just because there's a lot of guys that are, younger and could get it down the road, but also some guys that are kind of ready now. And Patrick Kane being thrown into the mix is going to be a conversation. Piranha, et cetera. It's kind of a cool conversation every year. Obviously, C is locked up. That was
really
way back in the day. That was that we had a couple episodes about giving Larkin the C or not, but.
Well, if you look back a couple years ago, I remember you and I did that back when they signed Perron and Sherratt. We did the who wears the letters conversation, and we did mention Seider and Raymond as being candidates, as like dark horse candidates, if you really wanted to embrace the youth. But I don't think there's such dark horse options now if David Perron walks away. So,
no, for sure.
As soon as we get an off day for you guys, with the Griffins playing Friday, that'll be your Sunday episode, or your Monday episode, rather. As soon as we get an off day, we'll do that for you. It'll be a fun conversation. But anyway, Scotty, you got any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We ball. We'll be back with Tony Ferrari tomorrow, and we're going to be doing a draft profile on Brandseg Nygaard, the player out of Norway. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.